Hey guys, welcome to the second lesson on the fundamentals of Java programming. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about making decisions. Basically, we're going to learn how to write programs that can think on their own, and depending on certain actions, we can make it perform other actions. So in the first lesson in our program, it was always really linear, where it started with our code in the beginning, and then it just executed each line until it hit the end. But with making decisions, we can work on this concept called branching, and we can allow our programs to do a certain set of code only if something is true or if something is false. So like we can do different things. I'll give you an example. If something is greater than 10, then we'll do this. But if it's not greater than 10, then we're not going to do it. So being able to add in some decisions allows us to make a program that can sort of think on its own. The first thing that we're going to look at in this topic is the if statement. The if statement is a very popular statement in almost every programming language, and this is the main statement that we'll use to make decisions. The if statement basically works with you use the keyword if, and you'll pass in some kind of statement that evaluates to something either true or false. And when we pass that in, if it's true, it's going to execute some code that is marked, okay, if this is true, do this. Or if it's false, it's going to do a certain set of code that is false. So the syntax for an if statement, like I said, is just the if keyword. Before I do this, let's just create a variable to mess with. I'll say int x equals 5. Now, how the if statement works is I'm going to say if, and then in parentheses, I'm going to say x, and then I can do something. So I can say if x is greater than 5, then we're going to do something. So if x is greater than 5, then I want to system.out.println x is greater than 5. So just right now, if I ran this program, because x is 5, and we know 5 is not greater than 5, so this is actually false, because x is not greater than 5. If I ran the program right now, we would see that nothing is displayed, and that's because this if statement is not true. So if I wanted to make it true, I can make x 1, let's say. Not 1, let's make it 6. 6 is greater than 5 now, so if I ran this program, we would see that now it says x is greater than 5. That's being displayed because it's true. Now, by default, if you don't supply curly braces, and I'll show you what I mean by that, only the first statement that follows the if statement is considered a part of the if statement. Meaning, if I add another statement right here, like I want to add another statement. I'm going to say another statement. This first one is only a part of the if statement because by default, only the statement that follows the if statement is a part of it. So even this is true right now, so both statements will be displayed, right? We'll see them both. But if I turn this into a 4, which makes this if statement false, meaning I don't see, 4 is less than 5. If I ran this now I'm not going to see this part. You would think that, I wouldn't see either of these because they're both part of the if statement, but that's not true. It's only the one that follows the if statement directly. So because this if statement is false, we don't see this line, but we still see another statement. Now, to make these both a part of the if statement, we add curly braces. So we just add a curly brace and another curly brace. And anything in between these curly braces now for the if statement are included in the if statement. So if I ran the program now we wouldn't see anything because this if statement is false. So now both these statements won't be shown anymore. If I make this true by turning x into 6 and then run this program, we'll see now we see them both. So the first thing of an if statement is if whatever this evaluates to is true, it will do the first set of braces for the if statement. So this is the true section of the if statement. Now, what can I put into an if statement inside of these parentheses? And the answer is anything that evaluates to a true or false value. And we talked about this in the first video. The majority of things that evaluate are the comparison operators, which are greater than, less than, is equal to, and not equal to. And by using those all evaluate to either true or false value. So those are perfect candidates of what can be inside of an if statement, because an if statement can only handle a true or false value. I could, if I really wanted to, I could say if true, and now this will always run because true can be passed into an if statement. So the other things that we could do is like greater than 5, we can say not equal, which is exclamation point. So this is true because 6 is not equal to 5. So we are going to see the statements there. But if I said is equal to, now this is equal to, this compares if they're equal, which they're not. So now we're not going to see anything because it's false. So that is the basics of an if statement. Let's just do an example of an if statement with getting some input from the user. We'll just ask them to enter in a number, and we're just gonna compare, is it equal to 4, and if it is, then we'll display something. That's all we want to do, just so you can see how it works with, let's say, a scanner. So let's first create a scanner, and I need to include this scanner. So we have our scanner. Now I'm just going to say system.out.println, enter a number. I'm going to say int number equals s.nextInt. Now I'm going to say if number, we'll just say actually if number is greater than 5, then I want to display something. System.out.println the number, or I'll plug it in. So I'll say number, which was whatever they typed in, is greater than 5. So whatever they typed in, I'll plug into this using concatenation. This is all we learned in the first lesson, and then I'll just say is greater than 5. So now is a little example. So enter a number 4. Nothing happens because the only time this is going to display is if this if statement is true. If number is greater than 5. Is number greater than 5? No, 4 is not in this case. Let's try again. 10. 10 is greater than 5. So that is true and it worked. So the major thing you need to remember about an if statement is it just evaluates this expression, whatever is inside of the parentheses. If that is true, it does the first block or brace, a set of braces that follows the if statement. That's the true section of the if statement. So now you may be wondering, okay, what is the false section? How do I determine, okay, if that's true, then do the true thing, but what if it's false? Let's do something that means, okay, this is false. For example, if they type in 4 in this, I want to be able to say, no, 4 is less than 5. So how we do that is we use an else statement. An else is basically just saying, okay, if that's not true, then do this. It's just the other side of the if statement. So to do it, we just write else under the if statement. Then we set up another block like that, and now whatever's inside of those is what happens if it is false. So now I'm just going to say number is not greater than 5. So now when I run this program, now it can work in all situations. If I type in 10, we get 10 is greater than 5. But if I type in 4, we see 4 is not greater than 5. So now we can work in both situations. The else is just the opposite. If the if statement is not true, then it does this. So when I typed in 4, it's saying if 4 is greater than 5, well, that's not. So then it goes to the else, and then it ran the else code. So that's the else part. Now, if statements can also have it's called nesting. I can nest if statements inside of each other. So, for example, in the true section of this, if it is true, I can do another if statement. I could say if number we'll say if number is, I don't know, less than 10. I want to display a separate message. So if it's less than 10, I'm going to say, we'll just add another message too. So it's greater than 5 and less than 10. else, I'm going to add an else to this part. So I'm going to say it's greater than 5, it's greater than 5, and greater than 10. So this is just to show you how, even though this really isn't that practical, I'm just showing you that I can put another if statement inside of an existing if statement. So what happens here is it first does this check. If it's true, that means it enters this part of the code, this if statement, this true section. When it enters here, then it says, okay, there's another if statement that I need to evaluate. So it goes to this if statement, and now it evaluates this one. If that's true, it will go to here, and then it will go to here, which I'm going to remove that right now. So if it's true, then it'll go to here. If it's false, then it'll go to here, and then the program will stop. So now it makes another decision. So let's first type in, let's type in 15. So you'll see that 15 is greater than 5 and greater than 10. So it came into here because the 15 is greater than 5, and it checked here. Is 15 less than 10? No, it is greater. So it went to the else section and did that line. But if I typed in 7, we'll see 7 is greater than 5 and less than 10. So that went to that one. So this is to show you that now I can do multiple if statements. I can nest if statements into each other. Now, there are some operators that I didn't talk about in the first lesson. There are operators that we can use to combine Boolean values together to make the if statement more complex, instead of using nesting maybe. So nesting is one way that we can use to make if statements more complex and do more decision making and get down and be more specific of what you're looking for. But there are other ways that we can do that also using these AND and OR operators. Basically, AND and OR operators, they are used to combine bools together, and depending on what they are, what the values are, they combine in different ways. So how they work is, I'll first show you by just typing bools. So we'll say bool, I don't know, we'll just give these random, it's boolean, we'll give these random names. So B1 equals number greater than 5 and number less than 10 or something. So this is the end. The end is 2 ampersands like this, and basically what happens is it checks the left hand side. It says if number is greater than 5, if it is, that will be true, or if it's not, it will be false. And if number is less than 10. So how an end works is if both are true, meaning if this side of it and this side are true, then the entire thing will evaluate to true. With an end, if one of them are false, then the whole thing will be false. So the only time an end returns true is if every single one is true. So let's see how this works. So I'm going to say if number is greater than 5 and number is less than 10. Now remember, when you use an AND operator to combine them together, every single time you do an AND, you have to re-specify what you're checking. A normal thing that programmers always mess up on, they'll be like, if number is greater than 5 and less than 10. No, you have to say AND number is less than 10. You have to re-specify it every time. So in this example, I'm going to say system.out.println number is greater than 5 and less than 10, like that. So if I ran this program now, so if I type in obviously 7, that is true, and then it displays its text. But what if it happens if I type in 12? Well, 12 is greater than 5, so you would think, oh, it should execute, but it doesn't. As you can see, when I hit enter, it doesn't say anything because 12 is greater than 10. So with an AND operator, they both have to be true. It can't just be one, like I was saying. So if just because this one is true, it's not going to print it unless both are true. So they both have to be true in order to make that work. So that's the end. Now the OR is similar to the AND, but it does not. They both don't have to be true. The OR works in the opposite way. So that how do you make an OR is it's 2 pipes like that above the enter key, shift above the enter key. and that's an or. And basically that means that only one of them has to be true for the entire thing to be true. So if one of these are true, it will all be true. So if I type in 12 again, we should see the dialogue now. And as you can see, we do. Because 12 is greater than 5, now it's true and it will do it. The only time an or will be false is if both of them are false. So to make that both false, actually we can't even. This is basically always going to execute, even if I type in 1, because 1 is less than 10. So the only time an or is false is if both conditions are false. So if both of these are false, then that would be true, and then it would be false. So that's how you use an AND and OR. Just remember the AND and OR operators are used to combine conditions together. Like we have two conditions here. They're used to combine them together, but they add a specific behavior depending on if it's an AND or an OR. If it's an AND, they both have to be true for it to be true. If it's an OR, only one has to be true for the whole thing to be true. So those are the two conditions with the AND and the OR. So another thing with the if statement that I want to talk about is I call it the if-else chain. And basically, if I asked you the question, let's say, write me a program that asks the user to type in either 1, 2, 3, or 4. And if they typed in 1, 2, 3, or 4, it would display some kind of text. Maybe it was like what grade or what year they are in high school, so freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, or it could be anything. It could just display different text. Now, with what you learned so far, you would just make 4 separate if statements. You would be like, if, I deleted, hold on, let me get number back. If number is equal to 1, then we'll do something. If number is equal to 2, we'll do something. Let me copy this, 3, 4. So, using what you know right now, this is what you would do. And every single time, it would do something different. So, system that out print line, I would be like, okay, we'll just display whatever number that it is. No, actually, we'll just say, we'll say F for freshman. S, J, and we'll say SE for senior. So if I ran this program right now and I typed in, okay, 3, we get the J for junior. But there's a problem in this code that you may not see right now. And the problem is, even though I typed in 3, or if I type in 1, it says F for freshman, it displays the correct value. I'm getting the right things, the right values being shown. But the problem is, with just standard if statements, if this is true, meaning F, if I typed in 1 and then it displayed F, we know that it can't be anything else. It can't be 2, 3, or 4, because if you're a freshman, you're a freshman. You can't be a freshman and a senior or something like that. So the problem with this is, even though it prints out F because I typed in 1, it's still going to check these 3 next if statements. It's going to go and say if number equals 2, if number equals 3, if number equals 4. Even though we know it can't be 2, 3, or 4, the computer is still going to check them because it just reads the program from top to bottom. And it's going to continue to check these. Now, because, I mean, if you think about it, we haven't told it not to check them. They're just if statements, so it's going to check each if statement. So this is a waste of CPU cycles. It's a waste of our processing time to process this information because we know it can't be true. So one way that we can fix this, and there is another way we can also do it, but the first one I'm going to show you is using the if-else series, or chain series, I like to call it. So if I add else to all of these, it basically links them together. If you remember with the if statement, we can do if something and then else is for everything else. But if we add else if, that allows us to do another check if the if statement before it was false. For example, if this is false, Then it goes to the else section, but because we did else if, that allows us to do another check for the false section. So then we do another check, and then if that's true, it will do this one. If it's false, then it will go to the next else if. Now the benefit of doing it like this is, if we type in 1 and it types in and it gets freshman, it's not going to continue on to checking these because it knows it can only be 1. It basically combines all these if statements together, meaning that once it hits true on one of them, it's not going to go to any of the other ones. So if I had 500 if statements and I found the one in the first time, it's not going to check the other ones using this method. If I just did regular if statements one after another, it would check every single one even if it found the answer. So by putting this else if, it combines them together. So now if I typed in 1, right when I type in 1, it's not going to check the other ones. It's going to exit right out of it's going to break out of the if statement right there. So that's the bonus of using if else if. So what I normally tell programmers is, if you are ever in a situation where you're going to be like doing actions depending on a certain value, like something like this, there are so many cases of using examples of a time where you'll be doing something like this. So I normally say, anytime you do something like this, you never want to just list lots of if statements without the else. Don't ever just go if, all with all different conditions. Because if they are supposed to act together, meaning if one is true, the other ones can't be true, then you don't ever want to do that. The only time you want to do multiple if statements like that is if the if statements are not connected in any way. If they're connected like this, you want to link them together with this else if series. Now, there's the last thing that we're going to talk about is a switch statement, which will work with this. And it's similar to using the if-else chain series like this, except the switch statement is just basically the switch statement is this. It's just a little bit more organized and easier to understand, and we'll look at that here in a little bit. Just before we do the switch statement, I just want to do one example of working with the if-else-if statements. What I want to do is I just want to make a basic program that asks the user to enter in the area of their yard. We'll say, enter area of your yard. And I just want to do a little program that says, if it's less than, we're making this up. If it's less than 10, then we'll say, oh, your yard is small. If it's greater than 10 but less than 50, it's, your yard is pretty big. And then if it's greater than that, then your yard is very big. So a program like this, each if statement is going to work together. That's the point, that why we want to use the if else. So we don't want to just do lots of if statements. We want to use the if else, because they all are working together. Because if your yard is small, it can't be small and big. So there's no point of checking each one. We just want to check the first one. So let's start off by saying if number. So number is going to be their area of their yard. We're saying if it is less than, we'll start with if it's less than 10, then we want to do something. So if I typed in 7, it's going to execute the code that's inside of here. And if it is, I'm going to say system.out.println your yard is very small. Now I'm going to say else if it is bigger than 10, I'm going to do another check. Else if number is greater than 10 and number is less than 50. Now remember, if you do an AND, that means if both of these have to be true in order for this to be true. So if it's in between that range, I'm going to say system.out.println your yard is pretty big. Not that big. It's pretty big. Then the last one I'm going to do is I'm just going to say else. Now remember, else means if the if statements before it are not true. That's basically the catch-all. If none of these are true, it's going to do whatever's in the else. So and the reason why we know if it reaches the else, it's greater than 50, is because or it could be 50 also, is because we know if it's less than 10, then it will do this. If it's greater than 10 and less than 50, it will do this. Meaning it can't be any other number besides a number 50 or greater. So if that's the case, it will display the else section. So if that's true, I'm going to say your yard is very big. So now if I ran this program, I'm going to say, oh no, I have a small yard, it's only 5. And it says your yard is very small. And it does not check the other ones. But now I'll say, oh, okay, no, my yard is 25. Your yard is pretty big. So we got into this section because it met these conditions. Now I'm going to say, no, I have a really big yard. I'm going to say 100. Your yard is very big. So as you can see, 100 is greater than 50. So this is the catch-all. We know it's greater than 50 because if it was less than 50, it would be saying this one. Like if I did 49, it's going to say your yard is pretty big because it got caught into this one. But if it's 50 or greater, it's going to be your yard is very big because this is the catch-all. It's catching the rest of them that fall into the else statement. So that is the basics so far of just if statements. If you can understand this program right now, you're good with if statements, but you need to fully be able to understand everything that's going on here. The AND operator, the OR operator, even though you don't see it here, and the ifs, the else ifs, and the else. You have to understand all of this because if statements are I don't know if I would say they are probably one of the most used statements because it really allows our programmers to make decisions. Now, the last thing I want to finish up with for this video is talking about this switch statement. And I told you before that the switch statement is just another way to do the if-else chain series, meaning that you have lots of things that work together and you want to check for different things like we just did with the yard. The switch statement could be possibly useful in that situation. However, one thing to note is that the switch statement can't do comparisons like greater than and less than. It's only for equality. And if you do have an equality situation, then the switch statement could be more useful to use than the if-else chain series. The switch statement is just, nicer on the eye. It looks nice. And it's easier to understand, I personally think. But ultimately, it does the same exact thing. So I'm going to actually keep these in here. I'm just going to write a program using a switch statement now that you enter your number. Just enter a number. And depending on what number you enter, like 1 to 5 or something, I'm just going to display something using a switch statement instead of if statements. So the syntax for a switch statement is you type in switch, then in parentheses you put what you are switching on. So I'm switching on number, meaning I'm checking the value of number. So the best way that I think the switch statement how you should understand the switch statement is think about whatever value you're be working with. So we're working with number, we put into there. Inside of the blocks is what we use to put what are the possible values that number can be. So number could be any number. So I'm going to list the possibilities here. These are kind of like the if statement. So I'm going to say case 1. So case 1, and then it's blocks for case 1, obviously. Case 1 means if number is 1, then do something. So system.out.print line the number is 1. And then I'm going to say break. I'll talk about break in a second. So the cases are just the possibilities of what the value can be that you passed in. So I'm going to say the number is 2 and the number is 3. The syntax for a case is just the case, the value, and then a colon. That's what you need to remember with that. It's a colon, and then it follows the if statement with the braces. And then if it is 2, whatever or inside these braces, it will do. So let's just test this real fast. I'm going to type in 2, and you can see it says the number is 2. So basically, it gets number, we switch on number, and then whatever it matches with that, so 2 matches with, because I typed in 2, it does the code for 2. Now you may be wondering why we have break there, and break basically says right when I do this case and it hits break, break out of the switch statement, meaning don't continue on to the next case. And this is similar to how the if-else series works, where if one of them is true, it does not go on to the next one because we made it if-else. If I just use regular if statements, then it would check every single one. So that's similar to that. Meaning, if I take out the break, that means that it's not going to leave the switch statement. So if I type in 2 now, we see the number is 2 and the number is 3. It falls through to the next case. So because I typed in 2, it did the 2 code, and then it fell through to the 3, and then it broke out. So the breaks are important to break out of the switch statement. If I only want the 2 to execute, then I do break, and then it leaves the switch statement so that it only does the code for 2. So 2, the number is 2, and it breaks out of the switch statement. So the switch statement is another way to do the same exact thing we did before. So I'm going to do the freshman thing real fast, like we did before, where it was just 4 cases. So I'm just going to add that in. So the 4 cases for whatever year you're in. Then I want to say freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior. Now I'm going to say enter your current grade. So now when I run the program, okay, I'm in my 2nd year, and you see that I'm a sophomore because it goes to the 2. Or if I type in 4, oh, I'm a senior. So the switch statement works the same way as the if-else statement, but you just can't use greater than less than. So this is only for checking equality. And if you are checking equality, this is the better way to go, I think, than using the if statement, because it's easier to read and maintain, I think. I could just come in, oh, if it's 3, then it's this code. If it's 4, then that code. The last thing with this, you may be thinking, oh, well, the if statement has an else section where that catches everything. If the if statements aren't true, it'll go to the else, and that will catch all the things if it wasn't true. And yes, the switch statement has that also. To use that, it's called the default for us. So it's default : and that's basically the else section. So invalid grade, I'll type in here. So that means if it's not 1, 2, 3, or 4, it'll go to invalid grade. So I'll type in 15. It says invalid grade because the default is basically the else of the switch statement. It catches everything if none of these are true. So if none of these are true, it will do the default. So any number I type in now, 1,000, it says invalid grade. So this is a pretty good program. You only can enter in 1, 2, 3, or 4 to get your class. But if you type in 5, it's an invalid grade. So this is the same thing as an if statement. They are equivalent in this situation. So I recommend messing around with the switch statement. I showed you how it works. Just remember the syntax. There's a colon after each case, and always add your break if you don't want it to fall into the next one. So for a program like this, we add the breaks. If you're a senior or a sophomore, you can't be a junior also. So that's why we have the breaks in. It's similar to the if statements using the if-else chain series. So I recommend working with the if statements and the switch statement like this, making some programs on your own, like the yards program, anything like that. Just mess around with it so it sticks and you remember it. We will be using the if statements and switch statements a lot more in future videos, so don't worry about it too much. If you can't remember it exactly, you will see it more in my videos. But this is just an intro to making decisions in programming. So depending on what the user enters or some kind of value, we can execute different code. It's not linear anymore. It doesn't start from the top and go to the bottom. It can make its decisions. So like this is making decisions. If I type in 1, it displays this. It thought the program is kind of thinking a little bit, and depending on whatever it comes up with, it will do some code. So that's it for this video. Stay tuned for the next one. I think the next one is on loop. So if you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments. Tell me what you thought about it. If you think that I didn't get a lot of examples, I can do some more examples in my next videos. That will help me out. So thanks for watching, and yeah, be sure to stay tuned for the next video.